If you grew up in the 1980s, you probably still remember your home back then. Warm, cluttered, and full of sentimental items. The big, heavy box TV with rabbit ear antennas, the rotary phone that clicked and clacked, or the thick burnt orange carpet that once covered the entire living room. Those small things used to be a familiar part of life, but now they only remain in old photos and fading memories. Today, let's go back together and look at the forgotten items that almost every home in the 80s used to have. Loud wallpaper made a statement in the 1980s homes, reflecting the era's boldness. The walls had nearly every color in the rainbow and often featured geometric patterns. Floral patterns were also extremely popular, matching the decade's floral comforters. This trend was perhaps slightly inspired by the Rubik's Cube craze, with its vibrant color blocks and continuously repeating patterns. Wallpaper made it easy to add color splashes and fit the overall aesthetic of the 80s. The brightness and dynamism of this wallpaper stand in complete contrast to the minimalism of the 21st century. Glass blocks were a home decor trend that really took off in the 80s. This item originated 100 years before, but it was in the 80s that glass blocks truly dominated, as many people started using them to create false walls to divide spaces. They were also popular for kitchen and bathroom windows, where they could let natural light in while still providing privacy for the room. Glass blocks became an integral part of the contemporary aesthetic of the time. The popularity of glass blocks was so huge that the trend even appeared in hit movies of the time, typically Look Who's Talking in 1989. This unique decorating trend became an essential part of architectural aesthetics, and its popularity even extended into the 90s. For many people, installing glass blocks in their home was a sign of keeping up with modern trends. Clear furniture, or Lucite, was a major interior design trend that made a strong comeback in the 80s. This trend was originally part of Art Deco in the early 20th century, but it became extremely popular again, appearing everywhere, from homes to businesses. Lucite created a modern, sleek feel and expanded the space, fitting the decade's bold style. A funny memory associated with these clear tables is that no one could try the sneaky foot-touching game under the dining table without being seen. An amusing advantage of this type of furniture, Lucite was a popular choice for chairs, side tables, and lamps, bringing a bit of Hollywood glamour into the home. The strong return of Lucite marked a turning point in 80s interior trends. Memphis Design was a prevalent decorative art style, characterized by colorful geometric patterns that became a popular trend in the 1980s. The interesting thing is that this trend did not originate in Memphis, Tennessee, but actually came from Italy. The inspiration for this design came from Bob Dylan's 1966 album, Blonde on Blonde. The Memphis style strongly permeated home interiors, standing out with vibrant colors, asymmetrical geometry, and playful motifs. Furniture and household items in this style were easily recognizable and created a distinct contrast to the minimalism of the previous decade. The Memphis style was seen in popular TV shows like Saved by the Bell and lasted into the 90s. This is a style that highlighted personalization and vibrancy, an unmistakable hallmark of the 80s decade. The vibrancy and maximalism of the 80s were best expressed through floral patterns being present everywhere in home decor. This wasn't just a minor decorating trend, it was a total takeover of the living space. Floral patterns not only appeared on bedding and curtains, but could also be found on lampshades, wallpaper, and chintz-covered sofas. Mixing different floral patterns, sometimes in the same room, was not uncommon at all. Floral patterns were considered extremely popular, and they perfectly matched the floral comforters on the bed. It felt like stepping into an ever-blooming garden, even when the weather outside was winter. The overwhelming presence of flowers transformed the living space into a busy visual canvas. This is a clear identifying feature of the 80s, easily noticeable when rewatching old movies and TV shows, making us smile as we remember a time when modesty in design was completely discarded. Metal wall sculptures were two-dimensional decorations that it seemed every house, new or old, had in the 80s. These artworks usually depicted plants, flowers, or flying birds, and they were often quite large to make a statement on the wall. Memories of these items are often linked to their bulkiness. If the sculpture was made of brass, they needed frequent polishing with specialized cleaner to keep their shine, a job that seemed never-ending. Their presence made decorating easy and created an artistic statement, even though in reality, they just added more dusting work to the house. Novelty phones were a big trend in the 80s, especially popular among teenagers. They could be shaped like beloved cartoon characters like Garfield or Snoopy. Kids often longed to get one when flipping through big department store Christmas catalogs. These phones had super long receiver cords, allowing users to wrap them around their fingers or even jump rope while talking to friends. For shared phones in the house, often mounted on the kitchen wall, privacy during calls was a real concern. People had to try hard to keep the conversation secret while hoping no one was eavesdropping on another phone in the house. Novelty phones were a desired Christmas gift and a symbol of teenage fashion and personal entertainment. Their appearance turned communication into a style statement. Wooden recipe boxes were where precious family recipes were stored before the internet became widespread. Recipes were often handwritten on small index cards and safely kept in a small decorative wooden or tin box, usually placed on the kitchen counter for easy access. These boxes were often decorated with rustic or floral motifs. The lovely memory is looking at the stained and frayed recipe cards, which was proof they had been used religiously for years. The recipe box was a family heirloom and an active part of the kitchen. Do you find this topic fascinating? If you love content like this, hit HYPE to keep us fired up to make more. Walking into any child's bedroom in the 80s, you would immediately recognize their personal signature through character bedding. The memory of choosing a favorite set featuring characters like Care Bears, G.I. Joe, Rainbow Bright, Transformers, Strawberry Shortcake, and He-Man is still very vivid. These bedding sets weren't just for sleeping. They were an extension of a child's identity. Some lucky children got sheet sets, pillowcases, and even window curtains that matched their favorite cartoon character, transforming the bedroom into a private world full of color and adventure. Owning character bedding was a major part of kids' bedroom culture. It was a point of pride to invite friends over and show off the bed covered with images of Optimus Prime or Rainbow Bright. The polyester material commonly found on these sheets also recalls a very characteristic feeling of the era. In the 80s, console televisions were large, boxy TVs that were used as furniture in the living room, not just an electronic device. These TVs took up a lot of space and were usually considered the focal point of the living room. These TVs often came with a remote control, an important convenience for easily switching through the increasing cable television channels. While bedroom TVs were getting smaller, the console TV remained the main TV in the house, acting as both an entertainment device and an important piece of furniture where everyone gathered. The memory of everyone gathering around this large box to watch favorite shows is still very warm. In homes of the early 80s, the splendor and weight of large, luxurious curtains were a clear style statement. They weren't just ordinary window coverings. They were the kind of drapes that ran from floor to ceiling. The use of thick fabric, often velvet or chintz, created a sense of massiveness and majesty for the room. Not only were the curtains themselves luxurious, but the large tie backs adorned with tassels and the decorative fabric panels, valances, running across the top of the window were also elaborate. This style was mainly present to make a style statement, a sense of royalty, as if the house was inspired by European monarchy. However, that splendor came with a big drawback. Cleaning these heavy curtains was an extremely difficult chore, almost every homemaker's nightmare at the time. Even though cleaning was labor-intensive, their presence was an indispensable element in aesthetically focused homes of that era, defining the luxury of the living room and dining room. Often accompanying the large, luxurious curtains were lace curtains, an item that brought softness and romance to the window. Lace curtains were a delicate layer of fabric, often used as an inner lining, gently filtering sunlight. This trend spread throughout the 80s, and it seemed no window escaped their presence, appearing in countless movies and TV shows of the time. Lace curtains provided a classic, elegant, and slightly nostalgic look, reminiscent of the Victorian era, even though they peaked in popularity during the disco age. Although popular in the 80s, the lace curtain trend has deep roots. First introduced by Europeans around the 1900s, they offered an interesting contrast, the gentle romance of lace against the boldness of other interior trends. The most popular type of kitchen cabinet in the 1980s was honey oak cabinets. This type of cabinet was built into a huge number of new homes throughout this decade. Memories of this cabinet style are not only tied to new homes, but also to visits to relatives' houses or repeated images in movies and TV at the time. This item was overused throughout the 80s, making it a symbol of the era's excess, appearing everywhere. The warm yellow oak, often with prominent wood grain, dominated kitchens for many years. Today, when we see this type of cabinet, they immediately remind us of the outdated style of acid-wash jeans and the widespread popularity of hairspray. It's hard to find a newly built kitchen at that time that lacked the presence of this honey oak color. After the explosion of floral patterns, bringing real nature into the living space became a huge trend. Plants were something that could be found everywhere in 80s homes. This trend was a strong inheritance from the 70s. Homes were built with many atriums, large windows, or other areas specially designed to accommodate this trend. Everyone seemed to want their own personal tropical forest right inside the house. The memory of tall ficus trees, philodendrons hanging down from shelves, and the meticulous care involved in tending to them is a common experience for many families. The popularity of indoor plants influenced other designs, spreading to bedding, curtains, and wallpaper, where leaf and plant prints appeared profusely. This created a living space that was both vibrant and fresh. If someone didn't want to use vibrant floral wallpaper, the main alternative was painting the walls with pastel and mauve colors. Pastel colors were the most common, including pink, light blue, mint green, or lilac, providing a cool and subtle feeling. But mauve was the signature color, a subtle tone, not quite pink and not quite purple, that could be used for the entire room or partitioned in various ways. Mauve became a symbol of elegance, evoking the tones of the desert, adobe homes, and high Sierra sunsets. This color became extremely popular after the death of the artist Georgia O'Keeffe in 1986. If someone didn't have pastel or mauve in their home, they might be considered behind the times, similar to the popularity of avocado green in the 1970s. Choosing these colors turned the walls into a statement about modern fashion trends and lifestyle. The 1980s was an era where convenience and consumerism reigned supreme, and one of the symbols of this new comfort was the automatic garage door. Although the garage door opener was invented during the Great Depression, it wasn't until the 80s that they became widespread across the country. This popularity was thanks to the wireless technology available during this time, allowing the door to be opened remotely from inside the car. The memory of pressing the button on the small remote when it was raining or snowing and seeing the door open automatically is a feeling of superior convenience that the previous generation never had. The popularity of this item was part of the era of new consumer spending after the economic recession of the 1970s. It was not just a convenience, but also a sign of financial stability and the desire to modernize living spaces. In the bathroom space, if you wanted to showcase maximum luxury and romance, nothing compared to sunken tubs or heart-shaped tubs. Although not everyone could afford one, they were installed in many homes, hotels, and resorts at the time. Heart-shaped tubs first appeared in 1968, but they reached their peak of popularity in the 80s. This was a symbol of glitz and personal indulgence. Owning a heart-shaped tub was largely considered a luxury, an item we often saw in movies depicting affluent lifestyles. The memory of large bathrooms, decorated with floor-to-ceiling mirrors and featuring the heart-shaped tub, is the hallmark of the extravagance and romance of that era. In the golden age of physical media, giant entertainment centers were indispensable pieces of furniture. These massive cabinets began to get bigger and more popular in the 80s because they needed to be huge to hold all the different entertainment equipment. We needed space for vinyl records, 8-track tapes, cassette tapes, beta tapes, VHS tapes, and Atari games. Even when some of these items were outdated by the end of the decade, people couldn't bring themselves to throw them away yet, increasing the need for storage space. These fancy cabinets usually had protective glass to keep dust out and magnetic door latches, even though they always attracted fingerprints. This was a common place to display the latest entertainment collection and the necessary equipment to play them. They were symbols of owning diverse entertainment technology. Brass fixtures and decor were a decorative material that was inescapable in 80s trends. They were everywhere: door handles, cabinet pulls, lamps, decorative animals, and candlesticks. The memory of the brass sparkling when it was first bought remains, but accompanying it was quick disappointment. Many of these fixtures were not solid brass, so they broke easily, or the brass plating wore off within just a few years. Brass items needed to be polished regularly with specialized cleaner, otherwise they looked terrible. This chore turned the initial elegance into a time-consuming obligation. Although popular, brass was basically considered a nuisance. Nowadays, it seems no one wants them anymore. Skirting was a trend inherited and made more popular from the 70s into the 1980s. Skirting wasn't limited just to women's skirts, but was also applied to furniture. Beds, sofas, and ottomans all had to have this skirting. Even glass-top furniture eventually was equipped with skirted coverings. These long skirts covered the legs of the furniture, creating a neater appearance. They were metaphorically compared to little monsters on the carpet, capable of swallowing up children's toys or anything else important. By the late 80s, neon colors started jumping from store signs and appearing inside homes. Neon was used in the form of small dashes here and there, often wall art or decorative objects in teenagers or young children's rooms. This dazzling color reflected the optimism and dynamism of the era. Neon colors played a big role in the fashion and decorating aesthetics of the 1980s, bringing a burst of color to rooms already filled with pastels. Hollywood vanity lights were a pretty standard fixture in the 1980s. This type of light had large spherical bulbs, often 60 or 100 watts. The fixture itself was often made of honey oak or coated brass. The memory of this type of light is that it was so bright that everyone seemed to want to feel glamorous under that light. However, this stadium light was so bright that sometimes it revealed makeup that didn't blend well with some women's skin tones. Almost every house in the 80s had wall-to-wall carpeting, an almost mandatory standard. Carpets were used to cover beautiful hardwood floors, with teal being one of the popular colors for flooring at the time. Installing wall-to-wall carpeting was already part of a trend in the 70s, where hardwood floors were covered by shag carpets. This carpet created a soft feeling. The prevalence of teal can be seen in the movie National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation in 1989. Dome clocks were one of the popular types of clocks seen in the 80s households. They were usually gold-colored, and the prominent feature was the small spheres rotating back and forth at the bottom. This design was very unique and visually appealing. They were considered very luxurious and could make people spend hours just looking at them. In the era before mobile phones were widespread, every household had at least one clock to check the time, and the dome clock represented a luxurious and mesmerizing decorative item. Slide projectors were an item that many households still had in the 80s, even though they were inherited from previous decades. A memorable recollection is that people were often dragged into watching friends or family members' vacation slideshows. Although they had to endure watching someone else's presentation, people did so because later they would have the chance to make others sit through their own presentation. If they didn't have a projector at home, people would also encounter them at school or work. Slide projectors were still considered quite interesting before computers and digital photo frames came along, being the only way to share trips far away. Toilet paper in various colors was a popular trend in the 70s and 80s. Toilet paper came in colors like blue, green, yellow, pink, and even patterns, used to color coordinate the bathroom. The memory of the bathroom being color coordinated from towels to toilet paper is very distinct. However, this trend was discontinued because the dyes used were not good for women. Accompanying accessories were abundant, including doll-shaped knitted toilet paper roll covers and Glade Spin Fresh, a roll holder with scented beads inside that would release fragrance when the roll spun. Glade Spin Fresh, appearing from 1983, was a popular way to deodorize at the time. Colored toilet paper was the perfect way to color the bathroom. Cassette storage cabinets were something everyone had in the 80s. The reason was that people had so many cassette tapes and VHS tapes, and both took up a lot of space. These small storage cabinets were a great way to organize the collection. They often had a simple design, usually made of wood or black plastic. Their presence allowed people to show off their collection to friends and family, expressing personal music and film tastes. Nesting tables were small tables that fit snugly underneath each other, like Russian nesting dolls. They were the perfect space-saving item for the living room. When guests arrived or extra tables were needed, they could be pulled out instantly. They usually had glass or glossy wood tops. Children especially loved them because they could pull them out to place their favorite sugary cereal on while watching Saturday morning cartoons. When talking about the 1980s, it was an era where everyone was passionate about collecting something, and the need to display these collections led to the boom of collectible shelves and figurines. You might see frosted glass animals, from tiny hummingbirds to sophisticated cats, sparkling under the living room lights. Especially popular were white decorative geese accented with blue ribbons and details, a rustic but beloved style. Additionally, blue willow ceramics were also a popular choice, often seen on plates, bowls, coffee cups, and vases, creating a blue overload in many homes. If someone knew you collected a specific type of item, they would just buy something small, and the next time they visited, they would see their gift proudly displayed right on the shelf. That was a very characteristic cycle of sharing and connection in the social life of that time, where small gifts carried great sentimental value. These shelves held stories and relationships, not just inanimate objects.
New coffee makers, specially ground and blended. Tastes so good, 3 of the machine makers recommend it.
Folks sure drinking a lot.
Before modern appliances like Keurig machines became popular, 80s kitchens were equipped with large, bulky coffee makers. These machines didn't just brew coffee, they often integrated clocks to tell time, and if they were more expensive models, they even had radios. The memory of mornings often starting with the fragrant smell of roasted and ground coffee was thanks to the habit of preparing the machine the night before. People often set the timer so the machine would brew automatically and be ready to drink right when the alarm clock went off. An important feature was that these machines always brewed a whole pot of coffee, not just a single cup. This reflected the traditional family lifestyle, where everyone enjoyed coffee together in the morning. This was the standard way to prepare coffee in the house, an indispensable morning ritual. This item represented technology convenience at its most basic level at the time, helping to save precious time every busy morning. Although color TVs had taken the main spot in the living room, black and white TVs were still popular and held an important role in the 80s. Most of them were remnants from previous decades, but because they still worked well, they weren't thrown away. They were even still sold in stores as an economical option. Black and white TVs were often considered the perfect TV for the kitchen or children's room. These small, compact TVs were often placed on the kitchen counter, allowing the homemaker to cook while keeping up with the news or favorite TV shows. For children, having a TV in their own room was a luxury, even if it was just a black and white screen. Black and white TVs were usually the secondary TVs in the house, while the main TV in the living room was always color. Despite lacking vibrant colors, these TVs were still essential media, serving secondary entertainment and news purposes. The 80s saw a strong technological transition, and electric typewriters boomed, becoming more popular than home computers. The reason was that home computers at the time were quite expensive and not widespread because there was no home internet yet. Electric typewriters, in contrast, were cheaper, more appealing, and more forgiving word processing devices than manual typewriters. Using an electric typewriter created a feeling of luxury and professionalism. Many adults and students spent hours drafting documents or homework, enjoying the sound of the electric keyboard, distinctly different from the mechanical one. Both types of typewriters were fun items to play with, but the electric one offered superior convenience. However, the electric typewriter's time was limited. By the end of the decade, personal computers, though initially expensive, quickly replaced them. The electric typewriter was a temporary but important solution, marking the beginning of the electronic era in the office and home. Was the electric typewriter the item that made you feel the most luxurious in the 80s? If these items bring back deep memories for you, please hit like and subscribe to the channel to join us as we continue to explore the treasures of American memory. In the 80s home, the sewing station was once a standard feature of almost every house, often found in the laundry room. This demonstrated a self-sufficient and thrifty lifestyle. The sewing station was essential for mending holes, hemming pants, and even making clothes for the whole family. Sewing was a basic family skill. The memory of sewing machines, spools of thread in every color, and small needles neatly arranged in this area is still very distinct. The sewing station wasn't just a workspace, it was a place where skills were passed down from mother to daughter, a part of family bonding. Nowadays, when clothes are cheap and shopping is easier, it's hard to find a sewing machine in any house. The disappearance of the sewing station symbolizes a big change in consumer habits and family values. Rattan and chrome chairs were a popular fad in the 1980s, most often found around the dining table. These chairs represented a combination of natural materials, rattan, and modern industrial materials, shiny chrome. The Brewer Chair Company produced many of these unique furniture items, and they quickly became symbols of the interior style of the time. However, a common experience was that the wood on the chairs could get scratched or have holes, making them less comfortable to sit on after some time. Even so, seeing these chairs immediately takes people back to that decade, recalling family dinners. Before voicemail or mobile phones, cassette answering machines were the only way to know if you missed a call when you were out. They had a screen that displayed the number of messages and a flashing light, signaling that someone had tried to reach you. The memory of trying to record the perfect answering machine greeting, repeating it until it sounded just right, is a common experience. The excitement of coming home and seeing the flashing light, knowing a message was waiting, is a characteristic emotion of this era. This was the first thing everyone checked when they got home, as they were the only form of asynchronous communication before modern voicemail. Floor-to-ceiling mirrors were a fairly common architectural feature in 80s homes. Although not every home had them, they were seen often enough in movies and on TV. They were used to create the feeling of a larger space, a simple but effective design trick. However, in the 80s, mirrors were overused. The 80s took mirror usage to a new level. It seemed almost every room had at least one large mirror hanging on the wall. Floor-to-ceiling mirrors were a symbol of the glamour and desire to maximize space of this decade. Encyclopedias were massive sets of knowledge books that 1980s parents invested a lot of money to buy. They contained facts on almost every topic and were perfect for helping with schoolwork, being the main resource for projects and homework. The memory of spending hours flipping through those thick books trying to search for information is familiar. Although expensive, many homes had a special shelf to display these prestigious books, showing the high value placed on education. However, they became outdated almost as soon as they were printed, especially once the personal computer era began. Even so, encyclopedias remained a classic item of the 1980s, representing parents' investment and expectations for their children's education. They were the symbol of knowledge in the pre-internet era. Thank you for following this journey. Which item on this list do you remember the most? Or do you still keep any of these items? Please share your story in the comments section so we can preserve these memories together. Like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on the wonderful things waiting ahead.